So I just finished reading Midnight Sun, right? And here is my brainstorming notes for the review that I'll be posting. So right now I'm just looking at it and thinking about like how am I going to outline everything and say everything I need to say about my reading experience, which is fantastic with just a few little flaws. So hopefully, no, I promise by the end of the week I'll get this together. Let's talk about it. Revisiting the world of Twilight, I realized a few things. I realized why Twilight worked. Twilight worked as a young adult novel because it took mythological creatures and brought it to where young women are, which is a high school setting. Showing up to school and shuffling past kids every 45 minutes every day is a dull routine that you're stuck in for 8 years or so, or 12 years. Just the idea that your high school crush is actually a vampire with this uncontrollable lust for your blood would certainly elevate that experience. And that's what Twilight did. Twilight tapped into our imaginations as adolescents who have only known school for most of our lives and are blossoming in our desires. So Percy Jackson, right? Percy Jackson books, from what I remember, it always start off with the final days of school. And that's very relatable to the average kid. The final days of school, the last day of school is extremely exciting. But how Percy Jackson's story is elevating that is Percy Jackson is excited to leave school because right after that, he's going to embark in adventures that his Greek god heritage compels him to. He's not just going to attend summer camp like you are after school. He's going to attend a summer camp for demigods. I think Harry Potter has the same formula. Right? I like to think that the Harry Potter school system has similarities to the British school system. Yeah, and what J.K. Rowling did is, again, take that system, the usual dullness of school, the dullness that it is for kids, and elevate that reality for them by giving the reality of these kids. Yes, they're going to school, but they're going to school to learn how to be a wizard, right? And what does that do to you as a kid? That makes you want to live through these kids who are, having a similar pattern of experience as you, but in a more elevated manner. I tie that to what made Twilight work. Your crush is a vampire. Your crush is a vampire. They want you back, but not in the way you've been wishing. He wants your blood. Your high school crush wants your blood. Boom, you have a story. You have elevated a common pattern of experience for young girls in this age group. It's amazing. Not only did Twilight for a time give mystery to the high school setting, it took itself seriously as a gothic romance. Now, what is a gothic romance? I did my research. I tried to find a solid definition for all the naysayers to this idea. A gothic romance is a type of novel that flourished in the late 18th and 19th century England. Gothic romances were mysteries often involving the supernatural and heavily tinged with horror. And they were usually set in dark backgrounds of medieval ruins and haunted castles. It aligns with what Twilight is, a romance where there's a mystery, the mystery being who are the Cullens, what are the Cullens, who is Edward Cullen, they're strange, and the involving the supernatural and heavily tinged with horror, the romance is a vampire who's in love with you but has this unsatiable lust for your blood. That is the tinge of horror that Twilight puts into this story. This is very much a modern gothic romance. I stand by that. I stick by that. Stephanie Meyer did a pretty solid job of bringing these elements into a modern reality that works. And obviously, whoever published Stephanie obviously understood that about what Twilight is, what Twilight could be. I believe they did with the sophistication of the covers. They had a modern gothic romance that took itself seriously. It's a young adult novel, but it is presenting itself in a serious, sophisticated way to young adults. And I think, being a young adult and wanting to be seen as mature, basically, the book sees you as mature. Okay, the book, the Twilight covers are looking at its consumer as a mature consumer. I think that was a huge part of how it was able to win the hearts of a lot of teenage girls who want that, who crave to be seen as that, crave to not be seen and treated as a child. And as an ex-teenage girl, as a teenage girl of 25, I do appreciate Twilight giving me that experience at my then maturity level. I also enjoy Edward as a dark romantic love interest. It was giving me Phantom of the Opera, the ghost from Phantom of the Opera. It was giving me Mr. Rochester's Secret, if I'm saying that right. I think it was Rochester, the guy from Jane Eyre. When you're making a modern gothic romance, right, and you're trying to bring that old world romantic figure, I love the idea of vampirism being the carrier to bring that man into our modern world and what he feels like in the modern world. With that said, I love that Twilight was written by a Mormon, particularly Midnight Sun. I like that Midnight Sun was written by a Mormon. Some would say that it limits the story, it being written by a Mormon. I say that it disciplines the story. Twilight written by somebody religious, grounds the vampirism to the shaming culture that surrounds Western human lust. Even if you are somebody who explores your sexuality, loves your sexuality, is really into exploring sexuality, you still understand the expectation of not being a slave to your desires, because Christianity is the foundation of Western culture. I don't know much about Mormon culture, but I have known stories from like the Call Her Daddy podcast where Mormon girls have to wear Mormon girls in Utah, that is, sometimes have to wear long sleeves. They can't show arms as if to tempt men. I also know that Mormon couples who are experiencing frustration. I remember this Call Her Daddy story where they would lie on the bed fully clothed, and somebody would, while they lie on each other on the bed, still fully clothed, not moving, somebody else would jump on the bed, and it would be like the motions of sex without having sex. The sexual frustration that they have, they're getting off in the most bare minimum way possible, right? While still maintaining this expectation over them to stay pure, to stay, I'm losing my words, but pretty much to stay in the approval of God. Some will argue that it's not healthy. Right? If we can say that, we can say the same thing about what it means to be a vampire. It is not healthy for a vampire to deny itself blood, to deny itself its parasitic nature, but the Collins are. And I think a Mormon, assign a Mormon this prompt to describe what it feels like for a vampire to deny its nature from the day that they're being moral, that they are aligning themselves with morality. They're going to subconsciously have a better sense of how to write that than another writer. I feel another writer would delight too much in the darkness, the sexiness, and the gore of vampirism. Still, even though you assign them to write a vampire denying itself its nature, give somebody who was raised in purity culture, right, in Anglo-Saxon American purity culture, give them the assignment to write about a vampire that is fighting extremely hard to deny its nature. They're going to just capture that feels more realistic because they understand better, I think, what that experience is. Again, it's just grounding the story in something that we can understand. You can be the complete opposite of somebody who is who believes and goes by purity culture. You can believe that sexual desire and sainting your sexual needs is completely natural. But because Christianity is religion, let's just say that religion is the foundation of Western culture, we still have a subconscious sense of what it means to behave aligned with God, to behave moral and pure. We still have that sense, so our subconscious can pick up better what Edward is experiencing. Again, compared to another writer who would sensationalize it too much, right? They would sensationalize the vampirism. I feel like another writer wouldn't care too much for the mental torment to capture it as well as they want to capture the sexiness, the thrill of a vampire story. I also think Twilight being written by a Mormon influences how it is written, in the sense that the bloodlust that Edward, Emmett, and Jasper are experiencing, the way it's their lust for another, their bloodlust for a human is described, it almost feels like cheating on their vampire mates. You know, it's almost written like cheating. The way they describe the neck, the way they describe the flush, the way they describe how seduced they are by their humans. We know that it means blood, but it's written like human lust, human desire. I do think a Mormon's going to capture that. I do think it takes a Mormon to capture that in that way, to capture that in that way. I feel like another writer would not come with that sensibilities if you assign them this kind of story and these kinds of vampires. Another thing that I feel is Mormon influenced, again, I'm not too studied in Mormonism. I had like a ADHD hyperfixation at some time when I watched a bunch of YouTube videos. When I was having that hyperfixation, I did pick up that how Mormon started, or I already forgot the name, but the guy who founded the religion, how he found the religion is he was in the woods, I guess, and he came across this angel. Yeah, and this angel gave him pretty much the Book of Mormon. I think it's probably a tablet for him to interpret and adapt and spread the word of this next chapter in God's book. And how this angel was described, he was described as, you know, I believe very white, idyllically white, and his skin like glowing. And I like how that Mormon influences how she writes Edward's vampirism, right? Because his visage, if I could use that word, is supposed to be appealing. And a lot of people made fun of the idea that Edward is a glittering vampire. But if you think about the old world and how they saw the world, it just makes sense. If somebody like the guy who founded the Mormon religion was to see Stephanie Meyer's vampires in that time, literally shining bright like a diamond, I believe they would automatically think that is an angel and be drawn to it, thinking that is a holy creature that's not going to hurt them. So how she writes this vampires, I think it's really based on old world sensibilities that the only fantastical, supernatural possibilities in that time was religion. So yes, I love that Twilight was written by a Mormon. So aside from Mormon influences, I really enjoyed the allusions Midnight Sun made to Edward and Bella's dynamic. Edward describes it as Hades and Persephone. Oh, I'm gonna say that wrong. I got it right. It was Persephone. Okay, so yes, I enjoyed the allusions to Hades and Persephone into what Edward was doing, getting into a relationship with Bella. As you know, the story of Hades is he sees Persephone in, I suppose, a meadow, but in a garden, a meadow, and he basically drags her to hell. He drags her to her realm because he is so infatuated. He is so infatuated with her. And that is very much what Edward is doing. But Edward has unlike Hades, who is again a slave to his desires, he wants Persephone, he drags her down. Edward is fighting that. He's losing that fight. And I like the comparison of losing that fight to bit by bit, giving her a pomegranate seed over pomegranate seed. Pretty much, I don't think Edward said this, but it's almost like leaving a trail of pomegranate seeds down to his underworld. Not you know, not exactly a drag down, but still very, very bad. You know, that lingers on Edward's point of view bit by bit, but he can't stay away. He is in love. He is awakened for the first time in 100 years. And you realize this as I say it, but it gives you maybe a perspective to what Hades was going through. When I think about the story of Hades and Persephone, and yeah, I think about it a lot, I do feel sorry for Persephone. What was so compelling about her to drag her down? I feel like, yeah, this story, this is somewhat of a retelling. It is. It is somewhat of a retelling of that perspective. Like, what is it, what was Hades experiencing to really latch on emotionally to this woman? Edward describes it here, comparing their relationship and how his feelings for Bella to that story. And I thought that was really, really cool. I thought that was really, really strong. And of course it connects to the pomegranates in the front, so I like that answered. I like that that mystery being answered. Why is it a pomegranate? Because Edward's perspective of Twilight is a Hades and Persephone retelling. Love it. One of the things that I really, really valued about Midnight Sun is Edward's perspective of Bella. As someone who consumed the series while the Twilight the whole Twilight franchise, books and movies, was in the forefront of pop culture, how I saw Bella was mostly influenced by Kristen Stewart and her acting decisions. But now that time has gone, the hype has died down, we're adults now, I get to be reintroduced to Bella in Edward's eyes, and I really enjoyed how it opened the possibilities for me in how I see Bella, right? When Edward described Bella's eye color as warm, I thought of Jessica Alba. When Edward said that her upper lip was bigger than her bottom lip, I thought of Emily Ratajkowski. When Edward said that she didn't like to look weak, right, and that she was brave, I thought of Jenny Ortega. When Edward said that her eyes had a depth to it, I thought of Anya Taylor-Joy. Basically, I started to see different molds of what Bella Swan can look like, and that was really, really refreshing, especially since, as we know, I like Kristen Stewart's Bella, but it does leave a lot to be desired in terms of character, right? Even in the books, Bella is often flustered by Edward's seductive qualities, and I'm living through that intoxicated experience that she's having, so I don't really get to pay much attention to what her personality is. I do hear, and I like her. Yeah, I like her a lot. This is the first time where Bella Swan truly starts to feel like a heroine. I also like the explanation of what makes Bella attractive. What about Bella appeals to Edward? What makes Bella stand out is that Edward can't read her mind. To find out things about her, unlike other people where you can just read their mind, it's more of a challenge for them. He has to pay attention to body language. He has to guess. He has to literally guess. And I think that pulls him out of boredom, that mental stimulation, right? And aside from that, what attracts, what tweaks that attraction to Bella is that her blood is so sweet. Her blood is so overwhelming to him, so he already has such a hard time staying away, so that on top of that is already what highlights Bella aside from the sea of people. And then you have that character, then you have that personality, right? That she's brave, that she's smart, that she has warm eye, there's warmth in her eyes, that she's beautiful. Yeah, I like the explanation and for why is it Bella. Out of all the women he could fall in love with, why is it Bella? I also really enjoyed Edward's characterization in this book. You know, you are reading an 100-year-old vampire who is mentally stuck with a 17-year-old mind, and that makes for something really, really interesting. His influence to be moral is Carlisle. It's his exposure to the morality, the perfect morality of Carlisle's mind as a vampire that makes it bearable for him. Well, it makes it slightly more bearable for him in this second life, this situation of being Carlisle's first companion. I think another person waking up and why am I this creature? Why am I this supposedly damned creature? Oh, I got lonely, I need a companion. That's still very infuriating. But Edward can't feel furious because he can read her mind. He could understand how he feels. He could understand that his mother begged for his life, and how Carlisle's, that mixed in with his loneliness, take that as permission. And you can also connect how deeply he respects Carlisle, Yeah, and that's being enough to agree with this position of being Carlisle's first companion. I love that backstory. I love that Stephanie Meyer gave me a detailed, well, pretty much a flashback to the past of what that interaction was. And that interaction wasn't grand. I remember it was like a cute little scene of Carlisle telling Edward Merry Christmas. Putting up a Christmas tree and telling him Merry Christmas. That little human, intimate scene. It's not much what you expect of vampires, but I absolutely adored it. I love the intimacy of it. I like that understanding of why Edward is who he is, and his self-control. So through Edward's perspective, Twilight is a story about his mental strength. Is he strong enough in mind and body to be near this girl, to be near the source of his happiness? And I realized that as I just talked, Carlisle, out of his own loneliness, chose Edward as his first companion. I guess we're also reading the story of Edward choosing his companion, right? He chooses Bella. He likes Bella as his companion, but he's not completely selfish, right? Of course, if he was completely selfish, he would go right at it, sucking his blood, right? Again, Carlisle and the family value is what influences the degree that he values Bella's life, and he doesn't make her his companion in a selfish way, in a way where she had no choice, like as Rosalie had, as Emmett had. I really did believe in the reasoning Edward had there. I also enjoyed Edward's gift. You are reading you are reading a book into perspective of somebody that reads minds. Edward's gift is very grounded in the story. When he reads minds, it's not for no reason. When he's reading minds, when he's picking up the emotion in the room, it is tightly tied to the story, right? It never feels like the author itself is enjoying this super cool power. I do believe that Stephanie Meyer in writing this was very disciplined with Edward's gift, and she was dynamic as well, very dynamic. I feel like another writer would be one-dimensional with the mind reading, right? They would do everything in italics, and they would think that we're having so much fun. Oh, look, cool. This is what he's saying, but this is what he's really thinking. But there's only one character like that, right? Yeah, where what Stephanie does is just give us layers and layers. We are getting a good secret, right? Why is Rosalie so upset with Edward for choosing Bella? Yeah, partly because Bella has a choice, but we also learn a little bit that Rosalie is vain, and she's also insulted. She's also a little jealous that Edward chose Bella, but not her in the beginning, the most beautiful girl in the world. How Edward finds out, it's like a slight slip. It's described as a slight slip but powerful enough to make him stop playing his piano and laugh at her. I like it. That's what I call a dynamic use of a character's power in this way. Maybe there's someone who does it better. Like, does anyone know another book in the perspective of somebody who reads minds? If you do, I don't think it's as good as how Edward does in Midnight Sun, and how natural it feels. That's the thing. You have to make this gift, this ability to read minds, natural, and Stephanie does it. And how you make it cool, yeah, Stephanie also does that. Alice, her gift is to be able to see the future. So a lot of things that happen is Edward and Alice have a synergy with each other. She will have visions flashing through her mind, and Edward could easily pick up what they're feeling, what they're doing. And Edward, in a sense, when he's around her, can tell the future too. He can easily see people's future too through through his inability to pick up people's streams of consciousness involuntarily. I thought that was how you bring about the coolness of his gift. And I believe that's all I have to say about Midnight Sun. Very, very good read for me. I would give it a 4.5 stars, you know, and the only reason I'm not giving it 5 stars was, again, Edward's inner dialogue did lag a bit too much. Like, certain things are repetitive. Yeah, certain paragraphs of Edward's angst did not need to be there. It was maybe too stream of consciousness for me. Some things definitely could have been edited out, but it's okay. It was bearable because it's Twilight. Is there a sharper writer out there that can do it better? Yeah, I think there can, but I think what Stephanie did was solid. And I think I appreciate solid writing than I do masterful writing. There's something charming and grounded about solid writing to me. Maybe I feel like I could write something like this too. So yes, that's my review. 4.5 stars. Bye.